By the time John pulled into the little town, every hotel room was taken. "You've got to have a room somewhere," he pleaded. "Or just a bed, I don't care where." "Well, I do have a double room with one occupant," admitted the manager, "and he might be glad to split the cost. But to tell you the truth, he snores so loudly that people in adjoining rooms have complained in the past. I'm not sure it'd be worth it to you." "No problem," the tired traveler assured him. "I'll take it." The next morning, John came down to breakfast, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The manager was impressed. "No problem with the other guy snoring then?" "Nope, I shut him up in no time." "How'd you manage that?" "He was already in bed, snoring away, when I came in the room," John said. "I went over, gave him a kiss on the cheek, and said, 'Good night, beautiful,' and he sat up all night watching me." 3 writers, Al, Ben, and Carl, who were attending a writing convention, booked a room on the 75th floor of a hotel. When they arrived back at the hotel from the convention, the receptionist told them, "I'm terribly sorry, but the elevator is broken. In the meantime, you will have to take the stairs." Now, Al was a writer of funny stories, Ben was a writer of scary stories, and Carl was a writer of sad stories. The 3 of them agreed that to make it less boring, Al would tell the other 2 his funniest stories while they climbed from floors 1 to 25. Ben would tell his scariest stories from floors 26 to 50, and Carl would tell his saddest stories from floors 51 to 75. They started to climb the stairs, and Al started to tell funny stories. By the time they reached the 25th floor, Ben and Carl were laughing hysterically. Then Ben started to tell scary stories. By the time they reached the 50th floor, Al and Carl were hugging each other in fear. Then Carl started to tell sad stories. "I'll tell my saddest story of all first," he said. "There once was a man named Carl who left his hotel room key in the car." An older woman, well past childbearing years, went to a walk-in clinic where she was seen by a young, new doctor. After about 3 minutes in the exam room, the doctor told her she was pregnant. She burst out the door, screaming as she ran down the hall. An older doctor stopped her and asked her what the problem was, and she told him what had happened. After hearing her out, he sat her down in another exam room and marched back to where the first doctor was and demanded, "What is the matter with you? That lady is over 60 years old and has 4 grown children and several grandchildren, and you told her she was pregnant?" The young doctor continued to write on his clipboard, and without looking up, he asked, "Does she still have the hiccups?" A French, a German, and an Italian spy are captured one day. The captors grab the French spy, take him to the next room, and tie his hands behind a chair. They then proceed to torture him for 2 hours before he finally cracks, answers all questions, and gives up all of his secrets. The captors then grabbed the German spy. They tie his hands behind the chair in the next room too and torture him for 4 hours before he finally cracks and tells them what they want to know. They then grab the Italian spy. Once again, they tie his hands behind the chair and begin torturing him. 4 hours go by, and the spy isn't talking. Then 8 hours, then 16, and after 24 hours, they give up and throw him back into the cell. The German and French spy are impressed and ask him how he managed to not talk. The Italian spy says, "I wanted to, but I couldn't move my hands." How would you tell her that you have to go to the bathroom? While teaching a class, a teacher trying to teach good manners asked her students the following question. "Michael, if you were on a date having dinner with a nice young lady, how would you tell her that you have to go to the bathroom?" Michael said, "Just a minute, I have to go pee." The teacher responded by saying, "That would be rude and impolite. What about you, Sherman? How would you say it?" Sherman said, "I am sorry, but I really need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." That's better, but it's still not very nice to say the word bathroom at the dinner table. And you, little Johnny, can you use your brain for once and show us your good manners? Johnny said, I would say, Darling, may I please be excused for a moment? I have to shake hands with a very dear friend of mine, who I hope to introduce you to after dinner. An attorney arrived home late after a very tough day trying to get a stay of execution. His last-minute plea for clemency to the governor had failed, and he was feeling worn out and depressed. As soon as he walked through the door at home, his wife started on him about, what time of night to be getting home is this? Where have you been? Dinner is cold and I'm not reheating it, and on and on and on. Too shattered to play his usual role in this familiar ritual, he poured himself a shot of whiskey and headed off for a long, hot soak in the bathtub, pursued by the predictable, sarcastic remarks as he dragged himself up the stairs. While he was in the bath, the phone rang. The wife answered and was told that her husband's client, James Edward Wright, had been granted a stay of execution after all. Finally realizing what a terrible day he must have had, she decided to go upstairs and give him the good news. As she opened the bathroom door, she was greeted by the sight of her husband bent over, naked, drying his legs and feet. "They're not hanging right tonight," she said. He whirled around and screamed, "For the love of God, woman, don't you ever stop!" A little boy wakes up one night and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room where his mother is having a party with her friends. "I have to pee," yells the little boy. "I have to pee." The mother takes her son to the bathroom. "Son," she says, "we do not yell the word pee when grown-ups are around. Next time, just whisper, okay?" The next day, the boy wakes up again and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room where his mother is continuing her party from last night. "I have to whisper," yells the little boy. "I gotta whisper." The mother, relieved that her son was more discreet than last time, takes her son to the bathroom. "Well done, son," she says. "That was much more polite." The next day, the boy wakes up again and realizes he needs to use the bathroom. He runs downstairs to the living room where his father is watching a football game. "I gotta whisper," yells the little boy. "I gotta whisper." The father says, "Son, come and whisper in your daddy's ear." A 90-year-old man goes for a physical and all of his tests come back normal. The doctor says, "Larry, everything looks great. How are you doing mentally and emotionally? Are you at peace with God?" Larry replies, "God and I are tight. He knows I have poor eyesight, so he's fixed it so when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, poof, the light goes on. When I'm done, poof, the light goes off." "Wow, that's incredible," the doctor says. A little later in the day, the doctor calls Larry's wife. "Bonnie," he says, "Larry is doing fine, but I had to call you because I'm in awe of his relationship with God. Is it true that he gets up during the night and poof, the light goes on in the bathroom, and when he's done, poof, the light goes off?" "Oh, sweet Jesus," exclaims Bonnie. "He's peeing in the refrigerator again." A vacationing penguin is driving through Arizona and sees that the car's oil pressure light is on. He gets out to look and sees oil dripping out of the motor. He drives to the nearest town and stops at the first gas station. After dropping the car off, the penguin goes for a walk around town. He sees an ice cream shop and, being a penguin in Arizona, decides that something cold would really hit the spot. He gets a big dish of vanilla ice cream and sits down to eat. Having no hands, he makes a real mess trying to eat with his little flippers. After finishing his ice cream, he goes back to the gas station and asks the mechanic if he's found the problem. The mechanic looks up from the engine and says, "It looks like you've blown a seal." No, the penguin replies, wiping his mouth. "It's just ice cream." A man was driving along the road when suddenly a Ferrari whizzed past him and the driver inside yelled, "Ever driven a Ferrari, mate?" This angered the man and he accelerated to catch up to the Ferrari and give the driver a piece of his mind. However, as he was about to reach the Ferrari, it accelerated and the man just managed to catch the driver yell, Ever driven a Ferrari, mate?" before the Ferrari left him in the dust. Recognizing that he was not able to match the Ferrari's speed, the man calmed down and resumed driving at normal speed. A few miles ahead, however, the man noticed the Ferrari upturned in a ditch. Curious about what might have happened, the man stopped his car and went to check out the crash scene. Inside the upturned Ferrari, a weak and shaky voice came out. "Ever driven a Ferrari, mate? Know where the brake is?" A man absolutely hated his wife's cat and decided to get rid of him one day by driving him 20 blocks from his home and leaving him at the park. As he was getting home, the cat was walking up the driveway. The next day, he decided to drive the cat 40 blocks away. He put the beast out and headed home. When he reached his driveway, there was the cat. He kept taking the cat further and further, but the cat would always beat him home. One day, he decided to drive hundreds of miles away. He drove out of town, through the desert, and into the next state until he reached what he thought was a safe distance from his home. He let the cat out and headed back. Hours later, the man calls home to his wife. "Jen, is the cat there?" "Yes," the wife answers. "Why do you ask?" "Put him on the phone," the man replies. "I'm lost and need directions." A woman named Lorraine Lee introduced her boyfriend, Frank, to her family for the first time. As Frank greeted Mr. and Mrs. Lee, Lorraine's stunning sister, Claire, whispered something to him. Curious and suspicious, Lorraine decided to check on them and found Frank and Claire in bed together. Lorraine confronted Frank, who pleaded for another chance. Reluctantly, Lorraine agreed, but made it clear that he must remain faithful. Years passed, and Frank remained loyal to Lorraine throughout their engagement, marriage, and even when they had children. However, he couldn't shake his thoughts about Claire. She consumed his mind at work, during meals, and in his dreams. One fateful morning, tragedy struck when Lorraine was fatally struck by a school bus while crossing the street after dropping off their children at school. At Lorraine's funeral, Frank joined the entire Lee family in mourning. They all praised Lorraine's qualities: a devoted daughter, a loving mother, and a caring sister. The minister noticed a smile on Frank's face and questioned the reason behind it. Frank revealed that he had overheard Claire speaking to the minister, leading him to a realization. Without hesitation, he began singing, "I can see Claire Lee now. Lorraine has gone." A television crew comes to the farm to do an interview with the shepherd about his daily routine. Our viewers would like to know what a regular day here in the countryside looks like. Can you start right from the beginning? Asks the reporter. "Oh, yeah, sure," starts the shepherd. "So first I wake up, but I really don't want to, so I take a sip of my brandy to start off my day. Then I have to go out to release the sheep. I'm still quite sleepy, so I take 2 sips to make me go outside, and 1 more to have energy to open the gate. Out in the field, I usually meet my pal and we drink 2 whole bottles of brandy together, and then—" "Oh, I'm sorry," interrupts the reporter. "We cannot really air that. Children are watching and we don't want to make a bad impression. How about every time you drink, you say you read a book instead?" "Yeah, that makes sense," says the shepherd, and starts over. "Well, the first thing in the morning, I wake up and read a page of my book. Then I go outside and read 2 more pages, plus 1 more while opening the gate for the sheep. While out in the field, I usually meet my buddy and we read 2 books together. Then we return home while reading page after page and lock the sheep in the barn. Finally, at the end of the day, we go to town where my friend has a library and we read till the morning." A man and his wife were awakened at 3 a.m. by a loud pounding on the door. The man gets up and goes to the door, where a drunken stranger, standing in the pouring rain, is asking for a push. "Not a chance," says the husband. "It's 3 in the morning." He slams the door and returns to bed. "Who was that?" asked his wife. "Just some drunk guy asking for a push," he answers. "Did you help him?" she asks. No, I did not. It's 3 a.m. in the morning and it's bloomin' well pouring with rain out there. Well, you have a short memory, says his wife. Can't you remember about 3 months ago when we broke down and those two guys helped us? I think you should help him, and you should be ashamed of yourself. God loves drunk people too, you know. The man does as he is told, gets dressed, and goes out into the pounding rain. He calls out into the dark, "Hello, are you still there?" "Yes," comes back the answer. "Do you still need a push?" calls out the husband. "Yes, please," comes the reply from the dark. "Where are you?" asks the husband. "Over here, on the swing," replied the drunk. One evening, my girlfriend turned to me with a playful smile and said, "Wanna try a 69?" Confused, I asked, "What's that?" She giggled, "Lay down and I'll show you." As she positioned herself over me, an unexpected noise escaped. Embarrassed, she quickly said, "Oops, sorry." Trying again, the same thing happened. I jumped up and said, "Yeah, I think I'll pass. I'm not sticking around for another 67 of those." A man and woman had been married for more than 60 years. They had shared everything. They had talked about everything. They had kept no secrets from each other, except that the little old woman had a shoebox in the top of her closet that she had cautioned her husband never to open or ask her about. For all of these years, he had never thought about the box. But one day, the little old woman got very sick, and the doctor said she would not recover. In trying to sort out their affairs, the little old man took down the shoebox and took it to his wife's bedside. She agreed that it was time that he should know what was in the box. When he opened it, he found 2 crocheted dolls and a stack of money totaling $95,000. He asked her about the contents. "When we were to be married," she said, "my grandmother told me the secret of a happy marriage was to never argue. She told me that if I ever got angry with you, I should just keep quiet and crochet a doll." The little old man was so moved, he had to fight back tears. Only 2 precious dolls were in the box. She had only been angry with him 2 times in all those years of living and loving. He almost burst with happiness. "Honey," he said, "that explains the dolls, but what about all of this money? Where did it come from?" "Oh," she said, "that's the money I made from selling the dolls." The day after his wife disappeared in a kayaking accident, an Anchorage man answered his door to find 2 grim-faced Alaska State Troopers. "We're sorry, Mr. Wilkins, but we have some information about your wife," said one trooper. "Tell me, did you find her?" Wilkins shouted. The troopers looked at each other. One said, "We have some bad news, some good news, and some really great news. Which do you want to hear first?" Fearing the worst, an ashen Mr. Wilkins said, "Give me the bad news first." The trooper said, "I'm sorry to tell you, sir, but this morning we found your wife's body in Kachemak Bay." "Oh my God," exclaimed Wilkins. Swallowing hard, he asked, "What's the good news?" The trooper continued, "When we pulled her up, she had 12 25-pound king crabs and 6 good-sized Dungeness crabs clinging to her, and we feel you are entitled to a share in the catch." Stunned, Mr. Wilkins demanded, "If that's the good news, what's the great news?" The trooper said, "We're going to pull her up again tomorrow." A young man went into confession, crying, and told the priest, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." "What have you done?" asked the priest. "A few weeks ago, I went to the library. I remained there until closing time, and when I was about to go home, rain started pouring down. It was so intense I had to wait in the library. I had waited for a while with the librarian, a young, attractive, single girl, and then one thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with her." The man stopped talking but kept weeping. "Well, don't cry. It's a sin, but it is not that bad. You should say 5 Hail Marys and it will be forgiven," said the priest. "But it doesn't end there," the man kept sobbing.
A few days later, my elderly neighbor asked me to help her with her computer. Her husband was hospitalized and she couldn't send an email to her son. I went there and fixed the problem, but when I was about to leave, rain started pouring down. It was really stormy and I had to wait. One thing led to another and I ended up sleeping with the old lady, the man cried. Oh dear. Well, that makes it harder indeed, but still, you should say 15 Hail Marys and you will be forgiven, said the priest. Oh, I'm afraid the worst part is still ahead, cried the man. Yesterday, I went to the barber. I was his last client that day. As soon as he finished and was about to close the shop, rain started pouring down so intensely I had to wait with him. One thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with him as well, the man cried. Oh dear, it is indeed worse than I thought, said the priest. So what should I do, Father? The man asked. Well, answered the priest, you should get the fuck out of here before it starts raining. A woman decides to have a facelift for her 50th birthday. She spends $15,000 and looks sensational. On her way home, she stops at a newsstand to buy a newspaper. Before leaving, she says to the clerk, I hope you don't mind my asking, but how old do you think I am? About 32, is the reply. Nope, I'm exactly 50, the woman says happily. A little while later, she goes into McDonald's and asks the counter girl the very same question. The girl replies, I'd guess about 29. With a big smile, the woman replies, Nope, I'm 50. Now she's feeling really good about herself. She stops at a candy shop on her way down the street. She goes up to the counter to get some mints and asks the assistant the same burning question. The clerk responds, Oh, I'd say 30. Again, she proudly responds, I'm 50, but thank you. While waiting for the bus to go home, she asks an old man waiting next to her the same question. He replies, Lady, I'm 78 and my eyesight is going. Although, when I was young, there was a surefire way to tell how old a woman was. It sounds very forward, but it requires you to let me put my hands under your bra. Then, and only then, I can tell you exactly how old you are. They wait in silence on the empty street until her curiosity gets the better of her. She finally blurts out, What the hell? Go ahead. He slips both of his hands under her blouse and begins to feel around, very slowly and carefully. He bounces and weighs each breast, and he gently pinches each nipple. He pushes her breasts together and rubs them against each other. After a couple of minutes of this, she says, Okay, how old am I? He completes one last squeeze of her breasts, removes his hands, and says, Madam, you are 50. Stunned and amazed, the woman says, That was incredible. How could you tell? I was behind you at McDonald's.
One morning at a doctor's surgery, a patient arrives complaining of serious back pain. The doctor examines him and asks him, Okay, what happened to your back? The patient replies, You know that I work for a local nightclub. This morning, I got home to my apartment early and heard a noise in my bedroom. On entering, I knew someone had been with my wife and the balcony door was open. I rushed out the balcony door and did not find anyone. As I looked down from the balcony, I saw a man running out and he was dressing himself. I grabbed the fridge and threw it at him. That's how I strained my back. The second patient arrives looking as if he has been in a car wreck. The doctor said, My previous patient looked bad, but you look terrible. What the hell happened to you? He replied, You know I have been unemployed for a while now. Today was the first day at my new job. I forgot to set my alarm and was running late. I was running out of the building, getting dressed at the same time, and you won't believe it, but I was hit by a fridge. The third patient arrives. He looks even worse than the other two patients do. The doctor is shocked. Again, he asks, What the hell happened to you? Well, I was sitting in a fridge and someone threw it from the third floor. After 37 years of marriage, Jake dumped his wife for his young secretary. His new girlfriend demanded that they live in Jake and Edith's multi-million-dollar home, and since the man's lawyers were a little better, he prevailed. He gave Edith, his now ex-wife, just 3 days to move out. She spent the first day packing her belongings into boxes, crates, and suitcases.
On the second day, she had movers come and collect her things. On the third day, she sat down for the last time at their beautiful dining room table by candlelight, put on some soft background music, and feasted on a pound of shrimp, a jar of caviar, and a bottle of Chardonnay. When she had finished, she went into each and every room and stuffed half-eaten shrimp shells dipped in caviar into the hollow of all of the curtain rods. She then cleaned up the kitchen and left. When the husband returned with his new girlfriend, all was bliss for the first few days. Then, slowly, the house began to smell. They tried everything, cleaning, mopping, and airing the place out. Vents were checked for dead rodents and carpets were cleaned. Air fresheners were hung everywhere. Exterminators were brought in to set off gas canisters, during which they had to move out for a few days. And in the end, they even replaced the expensive wool carpeting. Nothing worked. People stopped coming over to visit. Repairmen refused to work in the house. The maid quit. Finally, they could not take the stench any longer and decided to move. A month later, even though they had cut their price in half, they could not find a buyer for their stinky house. Word got out, and eventually, even the local realtors refused to return their calls. Finally, they had to borrow a huge sum of money from the bank to purchase a new place. The ex-wife called the man and asked how things were going. He told her the saga of the rotting house. She listened politely and said that she missed her old home terribly and would be willing to reduce her divorce settlement in exchange for getting the house back. Knowing his ex-wife had no idea how bad the smell was, he agreed on a price that was about 1/10 of what the house had been worth, but only if she were to sign the papers that very day. She agreed, and within the hour, his lawyers delivered the paperwork. A week later, the man and his girlfriend stood smiling as they watched the moving company pack everything to take to their new home, including the curtain rods.
Two 90-year-old men, Mike and Joe, have been friends for life. When it's clear Joe is dying, Mike visits him every day. One day, Mike says, "Joe, we both loved football all our lives, and we played football on Saturdays for so many years. Please do me one favor. When you get to heaven, somehow you must let me know if there's any football there." Joe looks up at Mike from his deathbed and replies, "Mike, you've been my best friend for many years, and if it's possible, I'll do that favor for you." Shortly after that, Joe passes away. At midnight, a couple of days later, Mike is awakened from a sound sleep by a blinding, flashing white light and a voice calling out to him, "Mike? Mike?" "Who is it?" asks Mike. He sits up suddenly. "Who is it?" "Mike, it's me, Joe." "You're not a Joe. Joe has just died." "I'm telling you, it's me, Joe," insists the voice. "Joe, where are you?" "In heaven," replies Joe. "I have some really good news and a little bad news." "Tell me the good news first." "The good news," Joe says, "is that there is football in heaven. All of the friends we knew and played with are here too. We're young again and never get tired." "That's fantastic," says Mike. "That's beyond my wildest dreams. So what could possibly be bad news?" After a short pause, Joe replied, "You're in the team for Saturday." A successful rancher died and left everything to his devoted wife. She was a very good-looking woman and determined to keep the ranch, but knew very little about ranching, so she decided to place an ad in the newspaper for a ranch hand. 2 cowboys applied for the job. One was gay and the other a drunk. She thought long and hard about it, and when no one else applied, she decided to hire the gay guy, figuring it would be safer to have him around the house than the drunk. He proved to be a hard worker who put in long hours every day and knew a lot about ranching. For weeks, the two of them worked, and the ranch was doing very well. Then one day, the rancher's widow said to the hired hand, "You have done a really good job, and the ranch looks great. You should go into town and kick up your heels." The hired hand readily agreed and went into town one Saturday night. 1 o'clock came, however, and he didn't return. 2 o'clock and no hired hand. Finally, he returned around 2:30.
and upon entering the room, he found the rancher's widow sitting by the fireplace with a glass of wine waiting for him. She quietly called him over to her. "Unbutton my blouse and take it off," she said. Trembling, he did as she directed. "Now take off my boots." He did as she asked, ever so slowly. "Now take off my socks." He removed each gently and placed them neatly by her boots. "Now take off my skirt." He slowly unbuttoned it, constantly watching her eyes in the firelight. "Now take off my bra." Again, with trembling hands, he did as he was told and dropped it to the floor. Then she looked at him and said, "If you ever wear my clothes into town again, you're fired."